I'm excited to welcome two very special guests onto the show today. My first guest is Vice President of Human Resources with the Philadelphia Eagles. She provides comprehensive human resources leadership, including developing and leading HR strategy and policy, cultivating a positive and productive work environment, engagement and inclusion, internal communications, talent acquisition, employee relations, benefits and wellness, compensation, and organizational development. She is Kristie Pappal. Welcome to the show, Kristie.
Hi, thank you so much, Matt.
And my
Thank you
second
for having
guest,
us.
I'm so excited to be having our conversation. My second guest is the CEO and a talent optimization expert at Optimus Talent Partners. As a Predictive Index Certified Partner, she specializes in workforce analytics. She helps organizations get the right people in the right roles and grow their exceptional talent. She is Jodie Cunningham. Welcome to the show, Jodie.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for the invite.
I'm so excited to have this conversation. It's the first time that I've really gotten to learn about both sides of the talent optimization partnership between a client and a consultant. So this is a very special day for me.
Should be fun.
Well, I want to get us started on the client side. And Kristie, I tell you, as a sports fan, my listeners and I probably have an inaccurate view, an unrealistic view about what happens inside a football franchise. We certainly enjoy the on-the-field product, but don't really know what happens behind the scenes. So how would you describe your HR team's role and your activities at a high level?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you for the intro. That kind of hit on the high level of the responsibilities that fall under my leadership. There's one thing every day that I remind myself is that there's 32 opportunities across the NFL, and there's certain perceptions. People really do only see what's on the field. But I'm really proud about when people join the team and see what a robust business that this sports organization is. And something I think that's special specifically about the Philadelphia Eagles is the real camaraderie and the energizing environment and being part of something bigger than each of us individually, and having that common goal, obviously, about being that Super Bowl winning team. So oftentimes it's like, oh, what's it like with the players, or how different is HR, in sports? And the one thing that I really share most frequently is HR, people, businesses, regardless of what your industry, we all have similar challenges, similar successes, for me, I think the high profile nature of the organization makes it seem so much bigger. So just to also give some context, my stakeholders are our full-time business operations staff, our full-time football operations employees, which are coaches, our video, and all of the teams that support the team on the field. And then we have part-time employees, retail operations, seasonal associates, and we have over 1,000 game day employees. The players are another stakeholder bucket, but really it stops with getting them onboarded, getting them into our systems, and getting them paid is kind of the daily operations. And one of the most rewarding things is every day is a little bit different.
Did you say 1,000 game day employees?
We do. It was very intentional around ticket takers and ushers and guest service and ticket sellers, to really be able to cultivate a culture that works, for the organization, to set the stage for the expectations. When people walk into Lincoln Financial Field, we have a lot of service partners, so don't get me wrong there as well. We operate with over 3,000 staff on game day. That it takes a village to run, all of our suites, all of our parking, our concessions, and the litany of things that it takes to really put on an amazing game day production.
I'm just sitting there on the couch and all those people are working hard. It's unbelievable. You have to thank them all for me, Kristie. Every one of them. That's amazing. It's amazing. I love it. And Jodie, I'll turn to you. How did you get to know Kristie's organization, and how did you help identify opportunities to introduce the talent optimization practices that you and I love so much?
Well, my background, I actually worked at an NFL team. I worked for the Rams back when they were in St. Louis. So St. Louis / LA Rams, worked for the team as their HR executive. And that's actually how I met Kristie. So as she mentioned, there's 32 teams in the NFL, right? So there's 32 of us when I was in that role. So we were a very tight-knit group, and we shared a lot of best practices. And I really got to know Kristie over my time in the NFL. And of course, she's awesome. So that relationship did not change after I launched my business and became a certified partner. And she heard many a conversation about predictive index and talent optimization and how much I found value in that resource. And So as we continued conversations about strategy and what she was looking to accomplish at the Eagles, eventually one thing led to another, and we were able to solidify that partnership. And now I have the opportunity to support her in that talent optimization journey.
And you still do quite a bit of work in sports. I know you work with country clubs and other types of things. Do you find that the experience you've had working with non-sports organizations has helped you in any way, considering you have such an extensive sports background?
Well, I think, as Kristie mentioned earlier, to some extent, HR and talent, no matter what the industry, we all have a lot of the same challenges. And so being able to share best practices from industry to industry is important. But I also think, too, just the background that I have in the NFL and professional sports in general, I think lends credibility when I am working with her and her team, because I understand what they're going through. I understand the challenges that they face. I understand the tight-knit group and really sometimes that reluctancy to trust outside individuals to come into the organization, just because we want to make sure that we're keeping a tight hold on who influences our stakeholders within the organization. So certainly a lot of best practices throughout a variety of different industries, but it's been great to be able to work with her.
With that background, better you than me working with Kristie, because Kristie, I have no idea what you're going through. I've never done it before. That's why I'm so excited to have you on the show right now. It's amazing. But I think one of the questions I'd have for you, Kristie, is let's go to the part of the relationship where you had brought Jodie in, you had a familiarity with one another from before, but you've decided to bring the predictive index and some of the tools into the organization. How did you, once you've decided to do that, how did you introduce them to the team and to your broader team, and how did you get started with PI?
Absolutely. So it's critically important, right, when you're launching something, that it's the right time, the right place, the right tool at the right opportunity. And fortunately for me, Jodie was patient. We, kind of had this longer cultivating relationship. I'm like, I'll know when it's the right time, because, introducing something just for the sake of introducing it isn't necessarily going to really build the value and, make the impact. So, having that credibility and ability to be able to connect at the right time was when Jodie came in. And ultimately, we had a new leader inside of the organization working with the tenured staff. And there were conversations around realigning roles, responsibilities. And I recognized this as the opportunity to, kind of connect. Hey, we're trying to solve this business challenge. How do we, make that alignment between the words that we so frequently use about the people and the business strategy? And Jodie and I scheduled a call, walked through, felt like this was the right opportunity to bring it into the organization. So, worked together on a proposal. I met with our executive team and our president, had conversations around what this could mean, and kind of gave some context around, here's the business challenge we're trying to solve for, and here's a solution that I'm bringing forward to hopefully solve for that. And wanted to really start small, so that there was an intentional that we've started with one group, and kind of scheduled that 1 week, blocked it, talked through the leaders about, is this something that you see as valuable? So getting that buy-in is really important, because if we push things as HR and are saying, hey, that you have to do this, it just becomes another thing on the to-do list. And connecting that, here's what you need, here's how this can help, and being a partner in solving that was really the success. And then kind of embracing that crawl, walk, run philosophy of, people recognized the value and they started to talk about it. And then it built that curiosity. And from there, it's opened more departments that have been interested. And it's more of a pull that our managers are coming forward and asking for this, or they're curious about what this looks like. So we've been building more of those workshops throughout the organization. And then, also connecting with Jodie about other ways that we can have kind of these little PI language introductions. So, kind of have these open forums at a variety of times throughout the year that we just push it out. If people can join, great. And you're interested, fabulous. And if not, so be it. But, really providing opportunities for people when they want to step in to be engaged, that tends to have the most stickiness and success across the team.
I love the examples that you and the pathway really that you laid out, because a lot of times when we think about a change initiative, like bringing in a talent optimization framework, it sounds like it could be very heavy, shut down the organization kind of thing, and that just doesn't work. But it's also not necessary. And as you pointed out, looking for an opportunity, establishing executive buy-in, starting small, letting the momentum lead to pull versus push. I mean, this is a best practice. That is fabulous. And had you had that experience before, or was that something that just kind of came to you as like, this is the right way to go?
Twofold. I've seen it, right, with some technology solutions go out and it's kind of all in and everything. And then you get some good traction at the beginning. And then like anything, it just fades without really being part of how you operate. So yes, I think some of those, I want to push everything out first and foremost and launch it across there. But I recognize that, kind of that intentional incremental wins is really where it's going to be, because if you push it out there and people aren't practicing this skill, it's just like anything. It atrophies and you're spending money and it goes in a drawer and it's not utilized. So, we did have a couple swings. We put it in from departments, got some really good traction. Then it did regress a little bit. And then, Jodie and I regrouped and talked about how can we have, some more teasers. And that's where we talked about having these, quick little sessions that were virtual and people could sign in from their own computers on their own times to build that muscle for themselves.
So cool. Yeah. I mean, people get so busy and it's hard, and change takes time and behavior change. And you've hit on one of my favorite things about talent optimization. It is possible to ingrain it into the flow of day-to-day work. So it's not something that's on the side. You have to go do it. It's just part of what it is, which is great. But Jodie, I'll turn back to you. We've led a couple different training sessions with Kristie and her team. And I guess I'd have the question, what's similar or what have you found being different when working with a high profile client like the Eagles versus some of your other more mainstream organizations?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. Again, a business is a business, and everybody has business goals, and they're trying to accomplish all of their objectives and make sure that they're hitting their KPIs and all of those sorts of things. I think one of the similarities I see with the Eagles, along with all my other clients, is just that that need that managers are craving leadership development. Right. Many times, no matter what industry, managers are promoted because they were great at doing the job, but now their job is to lead people, and they don't necessarily have those tools in their toolbox to be able to do that. Nobody really taught them, or they've never been through a class to learn how to lead. And so being able to use and learn PI as a language, as a basis, as a foundation to start really developing a leadership style to get the most out of the team to be able to achieve the business objectives, which, the nice thing in the NFL is clearly the business objective is to win a Super Bowl. We know what the objective is. It is very clear. There's no ambiguity around what are we all here to do. But there's so many different moving parts in terms of accomplishing that. And so being able to arm leaders with knowledge to make their jobs easier, I see that as a similarity across the board, no matter what industry. I would say probably the difference in leading education and teaching leaders within an NFL franchise is that it is a very tight-knit group. You have to be able to build trust and credibility. You have to make sure that you are supportive of the team. If somebody asks me if I'm an Eagles fan, of course I am. They're a client of mine. But I need not to be a fanatic, right? Walking in with all my Eagles garb and looking like a crazy person, right? So being able to find that balance of supporting the initiative, providing credibility, and letting them know that, it's a circle of trust when they are trying to learn how to be better at what they're doing and be vulnerable. And so being able to do that in class and maybe trip a few times before they get really good at it, providing that kind of circle of safety, I think is important, especially in such a high profile organization.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something earlier that was all about how do we help our managers really become effective leaders? And I don't know a lot about the NFL, but one thing I know is that the fan experience has dramatically changed. And so you're in this environment where the industry itself is evolving, and we may think, well, the NFL's been around forever. Well, yeah, but guess what? There's modernization of technology and expectations and the streaming platforms and everything else. It's all changing. So I think that's always a force that kind of works against us when we're trying to get a transformation program like this that's people-centric, is saying, I'm still trying to absorb all this change. How will this help me? And you're saying, okay, here, this is how it'll help you.
And I'll also add too, the other interesting thing about an NFL team or any professional sports team is that, in the building, you have one side of the building that's business operations, right? So that's, accounting, HR, marketing, media, community relations, all of those kind of things that fans never see really. And then you have the other side of the building, which is what people are familiar with: football operations, coaching, scouting, equipment, athletic trainers, all of those sorts of things, individuals you see on the field. So half of the building is all about coaching, right? So, giving feedback in the moment, positive or constructive, making sure that players understand where they stand in terms of their performance. That happens naturally on that side of the building. But what I found as a wow when I joined the NFL is how that doesn't always happen on the business side of the building, because those leaders haven't gained those knowledges and skills and experience to be able to give that feedback in real time, making sure that we're driving for the performance that we're looking for. And so also being able to share that knowledge across the building is an important component of kind of driving that talent optimization.
You're really opening my eyes to this, because I think when the ownership and the front office establishes a type of culture, and then there's almost, I would think, a subculture for the team itself, but then there are similarities and overlap. And it's fascinating to think about, as an outsider, what it must really be like and how these things are all connected.
And that's exactly what it is. It is this symbiotic relationship, right? The success on the field certainly makes life easier and more exciting and positive on the business side. Vice versa, driving strong sales, having our renewals for our season ticket members and our clients, right? There's a relationship that keeps people coming back, which allows us to continue to invest in technology, in, the facility, in the team. So, that certainly is one of those big elements that is a behind the scenes piece, that there very much is a symbiotic kind of, almost an infinity piece between, what's happening on and off the field that isn't necessarily visible, but is certainly driving, right? Revenue on a lot of fronts, and understanding all the different levers that go in. And that's the biggest part sometimes, is making sure culturally that people are connected, that, you may be sitting in doing something there, like, is this really making a difference? And it is. And that's, kind of making that connection for our employees, is that you are playing a role directly and indirectly in the success, whether it's the Super Bowl side, whether it's, for us, our commitment to the Eagles Autism Foundation and raising awareness and action there is really being part of something, much bigger. And to Jodie's point too, there's a tremendous amount of tenure. There's high profile. So people just assume big brand, big staff, big infrastructure. And, as you alluded to, the game is changing, technology is changing, fan expectations are changing, and so are the employee expectations. So that, making those connections between what's happening in the business, what's happening, very front of house, and how do we make sure that we have the right people? And when we start to see that skills aren't there, how do we, have these conversations? And I feel particularly proud as well that we've been able to build out, the HR team to provide for this leadership development and be able to support the business, so that, we are switching from kind of order taking and being a bit more reactive to really being more of a strategic partner. And this certainly is a tool in that toolbox to help us do that.
It reminds me of another story that was related to change. I host a webinar series called Perspectives, and one of my guests was the senior Donovan Mitchell, who works in the talent portion of the New York Mets. And he talked about when the new ownership came in, there had been a culture of really silos almost. And even their office layout was built with these really significant walls between certain parts of the organization. And he celebrated on the webinar, he talked about how they took sledgehammers and they literally smashed the walls to rearrange the entire office to allow the free flow of information and more sharing, more participative style of leadership. So as an example where, we might have this misinformed view about what happens behind the scenes of sports franchises, but they are a lot like, in some ways, like traditional organizations that are saying, we've got to cater to the needs and expectations of the new employees who are coming in and wanting to have more agency and more input and more of the transparency than what we've ever had before. It's incredible.
Yep. Well, and I'll say too, the labor market, as we've seen the labor market shift so significantly in the last, 5-6 years, having to change the way we do employee engagement. So, even for example, even less than 10 years ago, the idea was, listen, it's a privilege to be able to work at a professional sports franchise, right? And the brand is what was bringing in individuals to apply for a job. Likely Kristie would post a job and she'd get hundreds of applicants. That's changing, even with the high profile brand. And so it's not just about, oh, I want to work for the Eagles or any other professional sports franchise. It's now, I certainly want to contribute, but what's in it for me? And that has really changed how we have to be better leaders, how we have to provide a different workspace and different feeling and culture and that sort of thing. And that all, of course, ties back to talent optimization and how we're leading organization, being leaders within an organization.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kristie.
Oh no, I was just going to share the culture is certainly something that keeps people inside of the Eagles organization, right? There's also an assumption that, there must be similarities across, all of the teams. And, while there are certainly some, but, one of the things that keeps people here is there is a culture of, I do feel like a part of something, my voice matters. I've been, I have opportunities for advancement, and that is, has led to, our top workplace, recognition. And those are the pieces that when they're employee driven and employee feedback that you can't vote yourself in or, buy into these subscriptions, that's a testament to, how things operate. And oftentimes I think, leaders specifically or HR kind of gets to be these culture keepers. But, our president really hits on the fact that each and every person walking through the hallways inside of our organization, regardless of what your role, your tenure is, you are one of the culture keepers that are helping nurture and grow that each and every day. And, making sure that you have those right people that understand what their roles are able to be as productive, for themselves and their teams, and creating space to be able to have those conversations are, really a source of competitive advantage.
And I can imagine. So a lot of times when you have a rooting interest and you go to your own traditional workplace and your team has maybe lost or they're on a losing streak and everybody's kind of bummed about it. What is it like inside a sports franchise when you are that close to the product? Does your culture insulate you somewhat from some of the natural sort of, triumphs and struggles that a team on the field will go through?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest pieces is trying not to ride too high highs or too low lows, because especially for many of us, we've been through a lot of big winnings. We've been through, some very challenging, losing streaks. And it certainly does, right? It's a little more quiet, the head down on Monday morning if it wasn't as expected, and kind of respecting that, space and embracing some of that more silence with the head nod instead of a good morning, how are you? Like, right. And read the room and kind of understand the situation. But there's a quick rebound, right? It's such, hey, we're on to the next week kind of by Monday afternoon. And, absorbing that across the city, it's very palpable when, the team is doing well and when the team is not doing well. And, right, the privilege and responsibility that comes along with what we do as a business and leader in our community to kind of, be a part of that. So just being mindful of those swings. I also get asked the question often about, to Jodie's point, are people running in as super fans? And, we embrace this, kind of mindset of I am an Eagle versus I'm a fan of the team. And it's kind of a cultural mantra that talks about, like, you become this. It isn't, a fan or a team, but it's part of, where you're spending your time, your energy, your blood, sweat, and tears, and, kind of level setting for people to understand and have examples of what and how that shows up every day.
It's amazing. And I feel like as an outsider, I've just been incredibly impressed by the transformation project that you've mentioned, the way that you're building culture so intentionally. I love this concept of, we are Eagles. I love that very much. And Jodie, I'll ask you the question, like, you've been able to witness the talent optimization journey that you've begun with Kristie. What's impressed you most about sort of the progress been made and the overall approach?
Well, I think, she mentioned early on being patient, right? So it's a patient process. It's a big organization, although it is a bit small, smaller than maybe one might expect. But when we're talking about change takes time, and being very methodical in how that approach happens. I think one of the things I've been impressed with is just the opportunity to allow those individuals that show the interest, right? So once we plant those seeds of talent optimization, all of the resources, all of the guidance, all the education, there are numerous individuals that pop up and say, I want more, I want more, I want more. And so rather than, to Kristie's point, pushing on everybody the idea of digging into predictive index and talent optimization, it's let's feed those sprouts that are growing, because then naturally and organically, you start to see as they are starting to utilize the resources and the knowledge, their teams naturally rise with that that kind of influx, and then other teams, other departments see that and want to be a part of it, and so it just naturally happens. So I would say, that's probably one of the things that I've enjoyed watching as this has happened. I love getting emails from Kristie saying, "Hey, department head and over here wants to jump on a quick Zoom with you and talk a little bit about a couple people on their team." And when I see that, I go, "Okay, those seeds are planted and they're starting to sprout, and they're starting to see that value." And so I'd love just being able to add that value to them and give them a few additional tips, tools, and resources to make their jobs a little bit easier in driving towards their goals.
It's so powerful when it's their idea and they're bought in, they're motivated, they know this can provide value, but they just need a little bit of help to get going. It's such a natural motion at that point. I love it. I love it. And Kristie, maybe I'll ask you this one, which is, if you think about the future a little bit, and as we mentioned, there's so much change happening, not just even within your industry, but also within the workforce. And so when you think about the future people needs or opportunities, as you think about your part of the organization, what's got your attention right now?
Yeah, I think we've shared it a few times, but leadership development at all levels, kind of level setting the expectations coming in at your most entry level. Starting my first full-time job to I've been, 20 plus years sitting in a role, is that, you need to make sure that people are really prepared and have the tools to lead other people. And to Jodie's point, right, is like, people want to know that you're invested in me as my whole person, and providing the skills to people on a regular basis to be able to practice it. That's what I found most important. I am one that loves to learn, curious, attending all of these different sessions, but right, I'm also recognizing that when you go and have this big high and come back and don't do something with it, you're not really able to cultivate any type of change for yourself, and more importantly, to help, effectuate change for others. So the one thing that, again, just kind of coming back on the PI side of things, is really doubling down that it can be used at every single stage. And, again, not being a push on this, but hey, did you know if you talk about this, it gives you a more objective way to think about it. Oh, you're not sure of the job description. Let's help, leverage some of these different tools, that creates a new value proposition for our employees, and, that you are invested in them, right? We all know that, some of these highlights of things that employees are looking for from their employers are something, that they, if they're spending their time, they want to know there's something in it for them. So we want to make sure that we're giving that, looking at that development, and, helping people know you have to be in the driver's seat of your, professional career, whether you're just starting on or you're very seasoned, and, helping be able to give people, that ability to learn and grow inside the organization is something that is very critical for setting the organization up for future success.
Well, I'm so thoroughly impressed with your talent optimization journey with the PI tools, but I'm even more impressed with the successful partnership the two of you have been able to create. And I think based on your history, Jodie, your expertise, and being able to work with Kristie and her team in this way, I just love everything I've heard today. So I thank you both so much for sharing a bit with us. And I'll get you out of here with my easiest question of all. And I'll start with you, Kristie. Where can listeners go to learn more about you?
Sure. I guess not super social media friendly, but I'm absolutely actively engaged on LinkedIn, and, part of a number of other, HR and business communities. So that's a good space that then webs out to other things that I'm invested in.
I love it. And Jodie, how about you?
Same here. LinkedIn's the best place to find me. Jodie Cunningham on LinkedIn. And there's also a lot of great articles, different things that I've posted there in terms of resources. So I'd love to connect with anybody who's interested and have further in the conversation.
There you go, listeners. And I'm going to have those links for you in the show notes, so you're only one click away from connecting with Kristie, with Jodie. Thank you both so much for being with me today. I really appreciate all that you shared with my audience.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you again for the opportunity. Always great to learn and share together.